So for, as Xochitl says, as we prepare to bring in the new earth, we're actually going to Lake Mungo, Australia, which is home of the oldest living continuous human civilization. And we have a real treat because we have a multi-panel presentation for you. And so Neil, if you want to start bringing them on, I will start introducing who we have today. First of all, we have James Bowler. And James Bowler is actually the earth scientist that it was his research into climatic change, which, if that isn't relevant, 50 years ago, that took him to the dry ancient lake bed in Australia, where he was to come face to face with the remains of two Aboriginal ancestors, Mungo Lady and Mungo Man. And together they rewrote history as the oldest ritual burial sites in the world had come to the surface. And it was Jim's fate to discover them. And he's going to share today. And Joan Bowler, his wife, brings the feminine aspect of the story through her connection to the elders, including all the way back to Mungo Lady. And these amazing stories are explored firsthand, sharing the exciting discoveries and messages from Mungo. In addition, there is Jenny Bowler, and Jenny has developed transformational curriculum based on her mother's lifetime research at Mungo, currently being integrated into the Australian schools. And the digital resource Mungo Explorer integrates science, history, and arts with Indigenous perspectives. And we also have the pleasure of having Vicki Clark. And Vicki Clark is a outstanding Aboriginal Victorian who has contributed to her community as a proud Moody Wamba Wamba woman, as a mother, as an advocate for the rights of her people, and as a leader in national and state reconciliation between the First Peoples of Australia and the wider Australian community. And is Jason, Neil, is Jason here? Jason Kelly also is a respected Moody man, ceremony leader, and descendant of the Mungo people. So
is Jason maybe on under a different name, because I don't see him anywhere?
Okay, we can certainly get started with James, Joan, Jenny, and Vicki. I'll let you handle the technology, but we're in for a treat, not only learning about Lake Mungo, which is a UNESCO heritage site and which is a sacred site in Australia, but also experiencing the beautiful energies that are there as well.
Okay, well, just a moment. I'll take it away. First of all, I'll be talking to a set of slides, so I will run through these in a rather hasty sequence. We wait till the first one comes up. It is a story of learning from Indigenous Australia, the Lake Mungo Sacred Story, where nature encounters culture. Now, I'm a geologist, so my part largely comes from nature. And it's in that context that we begin by wondering about, we're amazed by the complexity of the states of North America, but that complexity is small compared to the complexity of the Aboriginal lands in Australia. Over 250 languages, 250 nation states. Our problem is, who were these people? How did that culture develop? And to address those questions, we can retreat to Lake Mungo as a special site here in the southern part of Australia. And this is the site to which I will be referring now. It's the entry between the wet country and the desert country, an area of complexity. Located centrally from close to Canberra, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, about 500 miles from each of these. The access, I was working from Canberra largely, working backwards and forwards to this area in Lake Mungo. I was interested in climate, so the climatic change is one that we focus on out here in the context between the rivers from the highlands and the desert dunes coming in from the west. And it's that complexity that we have to address in terms of the people who lived there at the time. They were multiple basins ancient lakes, but now all dry, no water in that landscape. This series of lakes here is that one, the series which connects Lake Mungo, and it's the Lake Mungo Centre here that we will be addressing in more detail. The discovery site on the lunettes, these big dunes on the eastern side of these lakes called lunettes. And in a satellite image, here is the system of lakes, Lake Mungo there, the Darling River. In the arid dune fields, these are advancing dunes, or they're stable today, but in Ice Age times, this was desert country, but intersected with water during the wetter times of the last glacial cycle. We look at the southern end of Lake Mungo, this big eroding dune. It's approximately 13 miles north to south, quite a large area, a very extensive erosion. And in that erosion area, I had suspected the presence of ancient people, but my archaeological colleagues didn't quite believe me until the day came when I found on this eroding landscape this block of soil, ancient soil, with a block well beyond 25,000 years, and there was exposing burnt bones. Now, this seemed to me the possibility of an ancient meal, but clearly evidence of people beyond 25,000 years. That startled my archaeological colleagues, but it took them a long time to come to be convinced that this was worth seeing. What we found there was burnt bones, and then picking up blocks of carbonate, out dropped a fragment of cranium. This was not just the sign of humanity, this was humanity itself. Here we were standing on a site of an ancient burning, an ancient cremation of at least 25,000 years ago. We now know it is much older, 40,000 years. The bones were returned to Canberra for physical reconstruction, and it was the reconstruction of my colleague, Dr. Alan Thorne, who was able to reconstruct the cranium of what proved to be a young woman, but a cranium that was fully modern. Now, up until this time, many scientists had assumed that ancient Australians had traces of Neanderthal or even earlier Homo erectus. This Thomas Huxley, Charles Darwin's colleague, is trying to prove that the Australian people were derived from Neanderthal. This became known as Mungo Lady. This evidence put that to rest. No more quibbling about the humanity of the earliest Australians. And at 40,000 years of the new revised date, Australia had taken a great leap back in time. But it was, oops, getting ahead of myself here. It was over this same landscape 5 years later that walking along here in the distance, I spotted the tip of a cranium emerging from the surface of those sands. Once again, I called my archaeological colleagues. They arrived and they excavated here this remarkable human remains. And there's a problem here where science encounters human remains. We often forget that these were people like you and I, fully conscious, perhaps a father of a family, but his spirit was much more important than just the detail of the bones. The spirit of that man lives on when we are challenged by the reality of that spirit. Now, these photographs are highly sensitive. They are displayed with permission of the elders, and I just ask that everybody who sees them respects that sacred notion. Here is the full excavation of Mungo Man, and in the process of uncovering, we found pellets of red brown material which turned out to be pellets of ochre. Ochre, remarkable anointing of that man's burial, 41,000, we round that off to 40,000 for simplicity. That ceremony, the excavation, the community in grief, the mourning of people, anointing of the body 40,000 years ago, that sacred anointing is unknown to us almost even today, to white Australians. And now additionally, on this photograph taken from my notebook, a large fire was used in the ceremony of the burial. So here we have a conjunction of both ochre and fire, an extraordinary ritual previously unknown. It's the oldest Mungo lady, the oldest cremation in the world, Mungo man, the oldest anointed with ochre thus far in the of modern humanity. So around the top of the cranium, see these red ochre stains. Now that ochre is an iron mineral, none of it occurring here. It has to be brought in from at least 150 kilometers away. And on this slug, you'll see this area here, a ground surface, even with scratch marks on it. That grinding was carried out here 40,000 years ago in that ritual burial of that man, and a leader, obviously a leader in his community. Now that work of the scientists had offended Aboriginal people to some extent, because science in the past had been really carried out some terrible analyses of human remains. So the Indigenous people claimed their rights, and here the elder Mrs. Alice Kelly, a Mati woman, a pioneer of the elders, challenging the scientists. And Alice Kelly is the grandmother of Vicki Clark, whom you will be meeting very shortly. So they claimed, they reminded us we were dealing with their spiritual connection with country. And that was a message that comes through loud and clear to us. The site was declared on the World Heritage UNESCO inspiration 1981. Aboriginal men arrived to claim back their land. This is our land, not yours. Our history, not yours. You've got your history. They are the Queen of England, and that's your history. Just you have to respect our rights in this nation. So the ladies were the peacemakers. Here's dear Alice Kelly with her colleague from the Barkindji tribe, Alice Bugmy, standing on the very site where Mungo Lady was discovered. They were connected to country. That is the white fella calls that their dreaming connection. In more Aboriginal terms, it's Al Chiringa. It is their spiritual connection with the land, a connection which white fellows have lost. The Aboriginal people kept reminding us, white man got no dreaming. We've got no Al Chiringa. So our challenge is, how do we reconnect with country? The message of ochre and fire, they were a people connected with nature. On that lakeshore requiem, are worthy of any celebration, a celebration in any cathedral today, carried out there 40,000 years ago. That's 35,000 years before Abraham, well before the Bible, before Islam, Buddhism, or Christianity. It was a spirit-charged connection, that to connect the connection of the acquiring of ochre, the anointing of the body, and the ritual fire. Those people were connected, a nature people connected. So that 40,000 years later, we meet the descendants of those. Those descendants are also connected to country, as you'll hear from Vicki Clark. A deep spiritual connection. It's their Al Chiringa, their dreaming. But we white fellas, what connection have we got? We arrived 1788 with the power of science, rational, dualistic products of the Enlightenment. We were the Enlightenment. We had mastery over nature, not connection with nature. We proclaimed death to the notion of spirit connections. Spirit connections had no part in the rational, dualistic nature of the Enlightenment. So where has our dreaming gone? Aboriginal people offer the invitation. They will help us to reconnect. That is an ecological conversion back to nature, which nurtured us. Our problem now, will we accept that invitation, or how do we react? Will we listen to the messages of the Mungo voices, past and present, those voices from the grave? What have you done? What have you done to our land? What have you done to our people? For 40,000 years, we await. Those messages still await to be heard. So that 40,000 years later, the descendants, they are connected to country. The Mungo people were connected to country. That deep spirit connection, their Alcharinga, their dreaming. We white arrivals, we have mastery over nature. We've abused and dispossessed the Aboriginal people. So from now, where has our dreaming gone? With voices await to be heard. 40,000 years later, this cleansing ritual of fire is now frequently reenacted by Aboriginal people today. Cleansing fire is an essential part of Aboriginal ceremony. An extraordinary continuity of people from the past to the present. 40,000 years of connection. No country on earth can claim this connection. The Aboriginal connection with country, a sacred connection, which we, the wise ones, have lost. The spirit of Mungo people remain with our Aboriginal cousins to restore our connection with Mother Earth. We await that conjunction of culture with nature, from which immense spirit energy is generated. We await that reconnection. We have to search for and make clear the definition of that spirit energy. And with the help of Aboriginal, the Mungo people and present Aboriginal descendants, that ecological conversion awaits us today in the Lake Mungo Sacred Site.
While we're waiting for Jenny, I just want to say, James, thank you so much. Thanks for giving us the history that really framed the importance of the Lake Mungo site. So thank you very much.
Can you hear me now, Ariel?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
you can. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I am really sorry, guys. I think that energy from those last presenters, I just was somewhere else. So something happened to my screen and I really apologize. We have something really beautiful for you guys. So thank you, Ariel, for inviting us here. I'll make mention of my brother Ben Bowler, who introduced us to you. And yes, we're about to really, Dad has really given you the backstory, the incredible story of how this all came to be. So we're now going to take you into to visit Mungo, to enter into what is an incredible sacred site. It is a site that, as Dad has said, he has met the oldest ancestors, the oldest ritual burials in the world. He came face to face with Mungo lady and Mungo man when he was looking for Ice Age Australia, when he was researching climate change. And what, as he tells us, it is actually the land that tells the story. It's the land that's held the story. So with that, we're going to enter into a bit of a journey here. And we were supposed to start with Vicki and her welcome to country. However, something happened to my end. So we're we're starting again after you've had more of this information. Here is the beautiful landscape at Mungo. So at this country, as you've seen with Dad, what's actually happened is that lunette. We're talking about Pachamama, we're talking about the goddess, we're talking about the sun and moon, the elements, the earth. At Mungo, it's so profound standing there. The spirit is in the land, it's in the soil. It's you look at the remains of lifestyles of people that actually lived, and you've just witnessed that, over 40,000 years ago. And we're incredibly privileged to have, it is a family affair, as myself, my dad and my mum, and I'm very privileged to have both of my parents in their age that they are. But with Vicki Clark, who is related to Alice Kelly, her granddaughter, and a descendant of the Muddy Muddy tribe from the Mungo area, an absolute privilege to have her with us and share her power and passion with you. So without going much further, let's step into her welcome.
Hello to all my brothers and sisters right across the world. Here I am sitting on the sacred lands of the Wadi Wadi people, who have been here for at least 60,000 years. And tonight I want to welcome you to my land. My grandfather's country is south of me, the Wamba Wamba people, and north of me is my grandmother's country, the Mutti Mutti people, from the very sacred lands of Lake Mungo. Traditionally, I would have a smoking ceremony to cleanse our session before we begin. But here in Australia, we have total fire ban days, and we cannot light fire. Even under cultural recognition or cultural purposes, we still cannot light fires for ceremonies. So I brought one of the most sacred things that we have to us as Aboriginal people, which is our water. Here is the land, here is the waterways that feeds the land of the Wadi Wadi, Wamba Wamba, Mutti Mutti people, the Murray River. And I've been gifted with the right to give people blessings of the water that comes from these riverways. So as a way of starting our night of acknowledging Lake Mungo, I bless you all with the water from the Great Murray River. The river that sustains us, the river that sustains our land, the river that sustains our animals, that feeds us, the river that connects us to all that has been. The river is the vein of the Mother Earth. So I bless you with the great waters of the Murray River here on my grandfather's country. Full stop.
Thank you, Vicki, for that beautiful blessing and for taking us into your country and for the water and for deepening this journey as we enter the landscape. So I'm going to pass it over now to my mother to share a little bit of her story and introduce you to her connection to the elders and open this up a little further as we continue. We'll then move into another ceremony from Vicki, with Vicki, and I will lead towards a deep listening experience as we start to connect to this timeless landscape, to a sense of the spirit of the ancestors and to the incredible sacredness that is at Lake Mungo. So Mum, I'm going to pass it over to you now, and I need to stop screen sharing. Mum, if you'd like to start.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Ariel, for this wonderful opportunity. And it's amazing that I'm sitting here and talking to you wonderful people. Jim and I have been married for the last 60 years, 61 actually. And of those 61 years, Mungo has been in the family story, or the Mungo story has been in the family for 52 of those years. So a long, long time. In the early days when Jim was going out to Mungo, when Mungo National, it wasn't a national park then, it was a sheep station. And Mungo, from where we were living in Canberra, which is the national capital here in Australia, was 500 miles. It was a long time, a long, long way, because, you know, in those days, this is 50 years ago, things weren't like they are today. And there was no communication. So when Jim was out there, it was little connection, only because we couldn't do it. In the meantime, I was at the home front with 6 little kids. And so really for some part of my life, I've spent bringing children up. And of course, the children were brought up with this story of Mungo as well. And they and me supported Jim in his research and what he had to do and the travels he had to make to further advance the knowledge of how important this area was. So over time, at one stage, I did take the kids out in an old, van, and we visited Mungo, and we got bogged on the way because the weather out in the like semi-desert area can be very, very unpredictable. But that was quite a lot of fun. And we got to Mungo, which was still a sheep station at that point. And the kids had a wonderful time, and it was just a magnificent space. And when nighttime came, we were lying on the dunes as we were allowed to, because it was still a sheep station. You could almost put your hand up and touch the ceiling of the stars. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful visual things for me, and particularly for the children. So over time, I then became more involved once I was able to move away from being total parent. And many, many times I've been out to Mungo since it has been declared a national park and a heritage listed property. And I've met the most amazing, beautiful people, the Indigenous people, who themselves had been not living in that space. It was a sheep station. It was originally taken from them. And so that, they had been disconnected from their land. So they too were coming back in a much more positive way and honourable way. And it was very exciting to see that they were really embracing what they owned. And so the connection for me particularly was with the women, and the men too. They were terrific, but the women, Vicki's grandmother and Vicki's aunties, and the like-minded other people in the different other tribes. We just shared so much over time with meetings and ceremonies and connections. And I think over all this time together, I think Mungo Lady has become sort of more like Mungo Man is obvious, but Mungo Lady is a real symbol to me. And through the eyes of the Indigenous people I just mentioned. And I think she has so much to be honoured for. She's a heroine, she's a saint, she's even though, as Jim described, there was only a cranium to begin with, but she opened the whole world to change. And I think for me, from all this experience, and it's had its moments in one way or another, is that I feel compelled to support Jim in what he's doing, and also Jenny and Ben too, and to really embrace the honour I have to expand the knowledge and awareness of how important Mungo is. And certainly through Mungo Lady and her generosity of staying or exposing her remains, so Jim could discover what an extraordinary story we have in Australia, and we really seriously don't appreciate it. Most Australians, white Australians or non-Indigenous people, have not totally understood, and I think that's our role, to really get a sense of what we own in Australia, what history we own. and present this story to the world as just something very special. Thank you.
Thank you, Mum. So beautifully said. And I just want to follow up on what you're saying. And it is often international people that can see the sacredness. Many people come to Australia and they go to a place like Mungo and they say it's one of the most powerful places they've been to, because the spirit, the Indigenous people is only 150, 200 years ago that they were living, singing, dancing, loving, all their cultural life is still so palpable, and there's been so much destruction and grief. And the story at Lake Mungo is a profound portal. It is a lake. It's an ancient lake that hasn't been filled for 20,000 years. My father actually has documented climate change for over 500,000 years. And all of this is recorded at Mungo. That lunette acts actually as a rain gauge and records the layers of time, which we're going to see soon. So what this portal has done, it's brought humanity together. Not just, it's a timeless landscape. It has a vertical dimension of time and down through the layers, back through to the 40, 50, 60,000 years. But it also has this horizontal where people come together, where communities, where the traditional people, Mungo Lady, they believe has brought the tribes together and has brought communities together, and educators and scientists and Indigenous perspectives and government and pastoralists all having to find a way to navigate through this incredible story that has unfolded at what is now a World Heritage Site. So with a little bit of that backstory, and it is there's so much at Mungo. We've actually developed curriculum and the teachers are now going out across Australia. It is a multi-dimensional place. So with that, we're now going to move forward, and with the beautiful work that Vicki does, step into another ceremony for you. We're very blessed and grateful, so grateful, Vicki, to have you go to all that trouble, all that effort over the last day or so to put these together for all of us. So can you see, what's just a minute, I'm sorry guys, I think I just got to check I'm sharing the right screen here. Here we go. And there we are. So what happens at Mungo every 2 years is a youth festival. And as I said, all those people come together at that time.
Hang on. Okay.
What I want to share with you is my connection to Lake Mungo. This is my grandmother's scarf, Alice Kelly, handed down to my mum, Joan Robinson. And inside this cooler, I have the sacred lands where my old people walked for 60,000 years. I can feel their presence when I touch it. I can hear the children playing. I can hear the old people speaking in language that I've never had the privilege to learn. I can feel the ancient ceremonies that have been handed down by the Creator Spirit 60,000 years ago. So I want to share with you some of the ceremonies that my old people practiced 60,000 years ago. I'm grinding ochre, the substance that's been given to us for ceremony. We always had to wait for the right people to come. Nothing would happen until they were all there. And when they would come, we would prepare ourselves with the greatest gift of anointing of our bodies. Just like they did with Mungo Man. When they laid him in his gravesite, they anointed him as a ritual of a man of high degree. When I place this ochre on my body, I can feel the connection to the sacredness. I can breathe the spirits of the old people. Not only of ochre, has been very common for the recognition of our new babies. They would melt the fat of the local animals down to keep them strong. Even though I was born on a run-through country, my spirit never belonged there. My spirit belonged to this land. Mutty mutty, wamba wamba country. But the old girls had a ritual of ensuring that the spirits of their newborns would remain to the lands of their birthright. They would place stones around their carriers, their coolers. These stones were very significant. The circle was never closed. It was always open. So the bad spirits would never stay. These vessels our old ladies carried their babies in, their food, the tucker that they would gather, and water that they would gather for their campsites. It became very sacred. The circle was significant because the circle meant a sacred site, a sacred gathering site, known as a bora ring, but many ceremonies were practiced thousands and thousands of years ago. When ceremony is not taking place, these coolamans are turned upside down as a time of waiting. The old people would watch for the stars in the skies when it was the right time for the new babe to be born. And when the babe was born, they turned it up for the new child, for the new community. When you look at the practice and ceremony that took place in Lake Mungo 60,000 years ago, those ceremonies are living here, they're living in the moment. Still practiced today, still practiced in the living moments of our own different families. So when you walk across country, you must always remember the people's footsteps that you are walking on. Those precious women. But I place a special stone tonight, a stone for all our Aboriginal women as a gateway that have been victims of domestic and family violence. May the spirits of this circle keep them strong, give them new direction of bringing their children, and may the power of the oil of the old fellas always watch over them and keep them safe.
So beautiful, Vicki. Thank you for opening that gateway for us. And I could feel that clay going on my face and that beautiful sacred circle you created for us. The coolamon, the baby being held. So much in there. We apologise for the wind. It's just one of those technical things. So but having said that, we're in the circle, we're in this ceremony, and so much thanks, Vicki. Lake Mungo is by nature a circle, and this lunet wraps around the edge of the rim, 33 kilometres. Amazingly, these lunets are actually unique to Australia. And you can see the effects of the elements, the wind, the water, the earth. Those ceremonies Vicki's just shared with us connect back to 60,000 years and possibly longer. I mean, it's incredibly extraordinary and it's mind-blowing, and it's beyond our capacity to get our minds around that kind of timing. So we're going to actually try to enter into this realm, which what happens to many people when they go to Mungo, connecting to that, to the earth, to the presence of the reality of people having lived in this place, to the layers beneath our feet that we all stand on or sit on wherever we are in the world. When you're at Mungo, it's never more real because you see it right there at your feet, your hands, your fingertips, and you sense it and feel it moving through you. So I'm going to offer a bit of a journey here. And before we move towards a deep listening experience where we'll play some music, and really we're going to open up. What happens also at Mungo is as people have talked about, the imaginal cells, it opens up this realm. For a mind to grasp that time frame, we have to move past our conscious mind and into some other area. And this is what we will move towards. This is on the lunette. You can see as we look out across, that is the lake bed stretching out, and the lunette is around 30 kilometers. The moon, the rising there, and the sunsets and the stars, as Vicki and Mum have talked about, are just incredible. On the dunes, as the wind has blown, these things have returned or emerged, as people have talked about, this emergence. Fireplaces. In that middle photo on the right is a midden, the remains of meals from probably 20, 30,000 years ago. A grinding tool just in the sand, exposed in the sand. Now the traditional people are back there managing this site as World Heritage. They're documenting and protecting these artifacts as they become uncovered. Mungo Lady, who was the first one found, as you heard, was returned to the elders in a ceremony in 1993. And it was only, and she was found in 1968. Mungo Man was found in 1974, and he was returned just 2 years ago. So incredible journey, this 50-year journey of this communication, this exploration, the anger and grief and frustration and understanding and searching and reconnecting. It is a story of reconnecting. It is a story of reconciling, and reconciling on so many levels, on the environment, on our own connection to land and country, to listening to the traditional elders and to the story, and to learning to appreciate and respect and gain knowledge of the lifestyles of the Mati Mati, Nyampa and the Barkindji tribes that are the elders of the Willandra World Heritage. So you can see on this photo on the right, as the layers go down, Mungo records time in the land. It's right there. Zanki, Arumpo, Mungo, Golgol, that Golgol area, and they're named after local pastoral properties that gave up land to develop the national park. But that Golgol area is around 60,000 years. So when my dad saw what he thought might be human remains, it was around that Mungo area, and he identified that as being 30, 40,000 years. So the science has opened this doorway here, and it has led to this cultural story and this cultural emergence and reclaiming and reconnecting that's been extraordinary, and then relearning and educating for the rest of us. Yeah, and so the actual archaeologists in Australia didn't believe him. They didn't, 50 years ago, they believed Aboriginal people had been here for 12,000 years. Of course, the elders had been saying that they've been here since the dreaming, and people would say science is catching up. What I want to now do is just begin our journey into the timeless world that is Lake Mungo. So I'm going to move now to another screen and share this beautiful time-lapse video. So wherever you are, if you're starting to get a sense of the feeling of Mungo and the energy of Mungo, or if it's more relevant for you to connect to somewhere in your own community, or to some of these sacred sites that have been talked about over these last few hours. Just see where this experience takes you. And we'll go for 2 or 3 minutes here. And so you'll be having a sense or a feeling that is brought through with this music. And I want to be able to take you a little bit further into your own experience, your own internal journey that we're all connecting to here. So let me find, can you hear me? I seem to have, here we go, sorry.
Yes, Jenny, we can hear you. We can hear you, and it's
Okay.
just absolutely, it's just breathtaking, Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're still going, so let's. It is breathtaking. It's mind-blowing, and now we're going to do just another few little things here, and we will finish with Vicki doing a ceremony. As we come out of this next stage, after I share it, any questions Vicki would love to address at the end, or Dad, please put them in the chat. We'll do that at the end. So we're now going to continue this journey, into this timeless layers, this vibration, this whatever it is that you're sitting with now in your body, whatever feeling, whatever sense, whatever image, the circles, the stones, the clay, the river, the ancient people. And Vicki did say things happen at the right time. People come together at the right time. In Australia, there's this beautiful word brought through to us by a woman from the northern part of Australia, an Indigenous elder from that area called Dundiri. And she says, our Aboriginal culture has taught us to be still and to wait. We do not try to hurry things up. We let them follow their natural course, like the seasons. We watch the moon in each of its phases. We wait for the rain to fill our rivers and water the thirsty earth. When twilight comes, we prepare for the night. At the dawn, we rise with the sun. And we're looking out across this lake. So this moment now is to really, this is what Mungo does. It connects you back to your soul, to your earth, to your body, to the spirits, to the Indigenous incredible story. Just before I go into that one, I now want to, we're about to enter into this deep listening experience, which is really going beyond conscious listening, going beyond empathy and reflective or any of that. You're expanding into something that is beyond the conscious mind that many of you would be very experienced in, and allowing the music to take you. So I want you just to shut your eyes now and see yourself on the lunette, or you might be taken to another sacred site, but let's stay with the Mungo here. And you're on the lunette, and the elements, the wind, you see the erosion. This lake was full 20,000 years ago. And the communities that lived there, of course, moved with the natural cycles of the earth. They returned in seasons and cycles. The return is eternal, as we are returning to the wisdom, and that has been spoken about by Starwolf, of remembering, reconnecting, and re-honoring our earth. So this piece of music that I'm about to play was actually played, and I think it was created for the Sydney Olympics in 2000. That's 20 years ago. And 20 years ago was the last time Saturn and Jupiter had come together in Taurus. The last 20 years, how much has that been a theme of the earth, of values, of what do we connect to, what do we honor? And of course, as some of you might be aware, that's about to happen again over this next few weeks. So this is a very powerful piece of music. Let it take you where it is that you need to go, and you'll hear the voice of the ancestors. And so that very beautiful piece of music, and I hope you enjoyed it and received whatever it is that you might be needing or open to receiving in this moment. There's something about connecting to Indigenous culture and seeing the ceremony and being witness to a part of it, and internally feeling that connection to ancestral memory. It's so soothing and nourishing. So we are nearly at the end. Just before we finish, are there any questions? Maybe somebody could, my last, this is just a really, really great photo to share with you, is the gathering. And this is the gathering at the youth festival, where, as you can see, the students, the elders, the scientists, the farmers, the pastoralists, the teachers, all come together in this circle as we are here now. And I'm really grateful and very blessed to share this with Vicki and Dad and Mum, and for us to be able to share this story with you all that are here and present with us today and watching later. And thank you, Ariel and Neil. It's such a gift and blessing, and thank you to Ben. So just before we finish up, I'm going to stop sharing the screen. If there's any questions for Vicki or for Dad, now's the time, and then we'll just play a 1 or 2 minute closing.
Yeah, Jenny, if we can handle questions in the chat, there are a few questions on the music, and people they can put the questions in the chat.
How can I hear more from the Sydney Children's Choir? I think you just have to Google the Sydney Children's Choir. That's Ross Edwards, who's a composer. He's an amazing Australian composer. So we will.
Yeah, if we can move into the closing,
I can't hear you. Oh,
you can't.
Can you hear me, Ariel?
Yes, I can. I
can't hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, you might. Jenny, can you hear me? Okay, Jenny has some setting issue.
Okay, so I'll just play the last. I'll just play the last little ceremony, because I actually couldn't hear, and we'll finish with Vicki's ceremony.
To all my brothers and sisters across the world, is the ultimate law that my old people taught me, that we as Aboriginal people are equal in the whole of creation. We needed the stars to guide us, the rivers to sustain us, the land for our spiritual base, and our food, our animals to feed us. Our trees gave us our spiritual connection and gave us the signposts for ceremonial places. So the one thing I must do now is return this water back to the riverways. Return the ochre and the gum leaves that I've used for ceremony, so that it continues to nurture the spirit of this land. We are only coexisting with the whole of creation. And may we always remember that we are equal in all of that. So goodbye to my friends across the world, and I hope you've enjoyed some time on the sacred lands of Lake Mungo.
Thank you, Vicki. And that's our journey.
Jenny, thank you so much. Vicki, I'd like to invite you, if you'd like to just say hello personally. I know you're here with us, and your ceremonies, along with the entire presentation, was just beautiful.
Thank you. I apologise. I've got dogs barking from my neighbour's house, so that's why I've been on mute most of the time. But I just wanted to reiterate everything that Jenny's just shared with everybody, and Jim and Joan too, that you are welcome to come to Lake Mungo and feel the spirits of my old people, walk in the footsteps of my ancestors, and reach out and touch those stars like Joan mentioned before. You can just almost feel them at Lake Mungo. But it is a very, very sacred place for me. It is my dreaming. It's where I come from. And it's always been part of my DNA. We talked about DNA earlier. So Mungo's there. And as I said, Yingiri, which means come in Mati Mati language. Come to Lake Mungo one day. So you can feel the spirit of the land from one of the oldest living cultures in the world. So thank you, Aaron.
Thank you. It's just an absolute pleasure to have you all, Jim and Joan and Jenny and Ben. I know you're still here, and Vicki. Just an absolute pleasure. Thank you all so very much for sharing. And